The morning sun sliced across the horizon like a golden blade as I parked my old Jeep in front of the Cedar Springs Public School. The peeling paint on the building reflected the neglect of a country that had forgotten its heroes. I carried with me only a folder with a few documents, a crumpled resume, and a heart too weary for yet another rejection. All I wanted was to teach history, not the history of the books, but the history I'd lived. The children ran around the yard, kicking a patched-up ball. The sound of laughter echoed like a distant reminder of what innocence meant. I felt a lump in my throat. After years of hearing the whistling of bullets cutting through the air, that simple sound of joy still seemed unreal to me. I entered the office. The floor creaked beneath my worn boots. A young woman with a name tag that read ... double quotes administrative assistant looked me up and down, wrinkling his nose as if the smell of gun oil was still clinging to me. "Do you have an appointment?" he asked, without looking up. "Yes, I do, with Director Hughes," I replied, trying to sound cordial. She gestured down the hallway dismissively. As I walked, I saw colorful posters on the walls: Inclusion Week, Respect and Empathy. I smiled ironically. I knew those words well on the battlefield. They meant surviving together. Here, they seemed like empty slogans. I knocked on the principal's door. "Come in," a firm voice replied. Inside, the man sat behind a gleaming desk. His suit was pressed, and he had a superior look in his eyes. The kind of person who never got his hands dirty, but liked to talk about sacrifice. "Mr. Miller, right?" he said, flipping through my resume without real interest. "I see you served in Iraq ... twice?" "3. I corrected. He raised his eyebrows as if it were too much to process. "And why did you decide to work in a public school?" The question was simple, but the tone was venomous. I took a deep breath, because I believe the next generation needs to understand the cost of freedom. Nice speech," he murmured, crossing his arms. "But you know, our children are ... sensitive. Some parents might feel uncomfortable with certain ... methods." I felt my blood boil. Methods? I just wanted to teach history. To talk about courage, camaraderie, honor things that seem to no longer fit into the modern vocabulary. "With all due respect, Director, I don't want to scare anyone. I just want to teach truthfully." He stood up slowly, walking around the table until he was facing me. "Really, Mr. Miller? The truth is that men like you belong to the past. Here, we educate with empathy, not with uniforms." The words cut deeper than any shard of glass. I stood silent, staring at him. Rage pulsed in my veins, but I had learned in the trenches and in the assemblies that silence sometimes speaks louder. "So that's it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Yes." He adjusted his jacket. "We appreciate your time, but we don't need that kind of ... energy between our children." As I was leaving, I heard the door slam shut behind me with a dry crack like the sound of a gunshot. In the hallway, some students were watching me curiously. One of them, a skinny boy with a torn backpack, asked me, "Are you a real soldier?" I smiled, lowered my gaze, and replied, "I went. But it seems that here, it doesn't count for much." I left school feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. The cold wind pierced my coat, and the American flag fluttered atop the flagpole, faded and forgotten. It seemed to mock me. I started the Jeep, but before driving away, I looked in the rearview mirror. I saw the boy still standing at the gate, watching me with eyes full of questions. Something inside me knew that story wasn't over yet. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, the bitter coffee between my trembling hands. The director's words echoed like distant gunshots. "Men like you belong to the past." Perhaps he was right, but I didn't know that the next day, that entire school would march not for him, but for me. My name is Daniel Miller, former sergeant in the United States Army. I served for almost 15 years. Of those, 7 were spent between the desert and hell. When I returned, I realized that the world I left to protect no longer existed, or perhaps I had changed too much to recognize it. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, where the loudest sound I heard was the church bell on Sundays. My father was a mechanic, a quiet man with calloused hands and a heart as firm as a V8 engine. My mother was a teacher. She taught me that words are also weapons, and used the right way can change a destiny. I just didn't know that one day I would need them to defend myself within the very country I swore to protect. I joined the army at 18. At the time, I believed that the uniform was the armor of the righteous, that serving the flag meant honoring all who came before me. But war has a peculiar way of shattering a man's illusions. I remember my first night in Iraq. The sky burned with shades of copper and smoke. The smell of diesel and blood mingled with the hot air. I was just a boy trying to appear strong. With each explosion, I felt my heart shatter and mend itself in the same second. I discovered that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's continuing even when everything inside you begs you to stop. Over time, I learned to sleep listening to gunshots. I learned to eat in silence, to laugh at death, to cry in secret. I saw friends fall like shadows disappearing under the dust, and each of them left a part of me there, in the desert, in the heat, in the emptiness. Going back home was the biggest challenge. The streets seemed too quiet, the people too distracted. While I struggled to forget the noise of the bombs, they complained about the traffic or the slow internet. That's when I realized I was no longer one of them. I was a stranger in familiar territory. I tried working in factories, in private security, even driving a truck. But with every engine I started, I heard the distant sound of a helicopter. In every headlight reflection, I saw the flash of a mortar. That's when I found my purpose. To teach. The idea came to me one afternoon when I visited my nephew's school. The history teacher was talking about World War II, reading from a book in a monotone voice. The children were yawning. No sparkle in their eyes, no weight in their words. When he mentioned the courage of the soldiers, something inside me stirred. I wanted to show them what courage really meant. I wanted them to understand that behind every flag there is a face, a name, a story. Freedom is not a free right. It is a gift paid for in blood and silence. I spent months studying basic pedagogy, getting certifications, and preparing lessons with dedication. I didn't want to be just the veteran who survived. I wanted to be the teacher who would inspire someone to fight not with weapons but with values. But with each interview I did, the same shadow loomed: prejudice. People looked at my military resume and saw danger, trauma, instability. Never discipline, leadership, courage. One of them even asked me if I still heard voices. I answered yes, the voices of my companions reminding me who I am. When I finally got an interview at the Cedar Springs School, I thought it would be different. It was a simple, public school, full of young people who needed someone to believe in them. And I believed in them. That morning, as I put on my old military coat, the same one I wore on the way home, I looked at my reflection in the mirror and thought, maybe today is the day. Maybe I'll finally find a place where my story serves a purpose. But life has a cruel talent for turning hope into trial. As I walked through the schoolyard, seeing the children smile, I felt my heart warm. It was as if a part of me came back to life. And for a brief moment, I believed I could leave the war behind. Little did I know that, in that same building, I would face a new battle won where the bullets were words and the enemy, prejudice. That morning when I went to school, I still believed that honesty and hard work would open doors. But sometimes, the civilized world seems to have its own invisible trenches, and in them, men like me always end up on the wrong side. After the interview with Principal Hughes, I tried to keep my head held high. I left the school, sat in the back of the Jeep, and stood there, watching the comings and goings of students and teachers. Part of me refused to accept that, once again, I had been dismissed as something dangerous. The same country that taught me to fight now saw me as a threat. The wind swayed the American flag high on the flagpole, and I found myself staring at it. In Baghdad, my comrades and I slept beneath that same symbol. We believed it represented freedom, unity, purpose. Now it seemed like just a faded cloth fluttering over a place that didn't want heroes. I decided to go back the next day, not to beg, but to understand. I wanted an explanation. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was just a need to be heard, something that had been denied me for too long. I arrived early, before classes started. The courtyard was still empty. I carried with me a letter of recommendation signed by my former commander. A man of honor and unwavering character, it read. I believed that if Hughes read this, he would see who I truly was. When I entered the school, Some teachers looked at me strangely. A woman with gray hair whispered something to the colleague next to her, who simply shook his head. I heard one word stand out in a whisper: trauma. That word has haunted me for years. People use it as a shield to hide their fear of us, fear of what we've seen, of what we're capable of enduring. I knocked on the principal's door. He took a while to answer. When he finally opened it, he seemed surprised and annoyed. "Mr. Miller, what are you doing here?" "I just came to deliver something." I carefully handed her the letter. "I thought you might want to know a little more about who I am." He reluctantly picked up the envelope, read the first few lines and sighed. "I already told you yesterday, Mr. Miller. There are no vacancies available." "I didn't ask for the job," I replied. "I asked for respect." Hughes frowned, visibly annoyed. "Are you implying something?" "I'm just saying that I've dedicated half my life to this country, and all I want now is the chance to serve in another way. Teaching isn't a threat, Director." He stood up abruptly, as if I had crossed an invisible line. "Mr. Miller, you may not realize it, but your presence is intimidating. Some teachers felt uncomfortable seeing you walking down the hallways yesterday. The children commented on your scars. I remained silent. His words hit me like grenades thrown in slow motion. I had been trained to confront armed insurgents, but I didn't know how to react to a man who called me a threat simply for existing. "I understand," I murmured. "Then I'd better go." I turned my back, but before I could leave, I heard something that froze my blood. "You should seek help, Miller. These veterans sometimes don't realize they're still fighting a war that's already over." That phrase echoed in my mind for hours. Help? How many times have I heard this from people who have never been a step away from death? They think help is a way of fixing us, as if we were machines with broken parts. But we are not broken. We are just trying to live with the weight of what we have seen. I left there feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. I walked to the gate and found the same boy from the day before, the one with the torn backpack. He recognized me immediately. "You're back. Are you going to be our teacher?" he asked hopefully. I swallowed hard. "I don't think so, kid. They don't need me here." He frowned. "But you fought for our country, double quotes." She smiled weakly. "Sometimes fighting isn't enough." I got in the Jeep and drove away. The streets seemed colder than usual. I parked near a cafe and stood there alone, watching the activity. Hurried people, expressionless faces. No one there had any idea that just a few meters away, a man was being defeated by something invisible. That night, I sat by the fireplace with my old military jacket draped over the back of the chair. I stared at it for long minutes, remembering the day I first wore it. It had been a symbol of pride. Now it seemed merely a reminder that the world no longer knew what to do with me. But something inside me still pulsed. An ancient instinct, the same one that made me get up after every explosion. I didn't know what fate had in store, but I felt that this conflict, this silent battle between who I was and who the world wanted me to be, was only just beginning. And, without realizing it, the boy with the torn backpack had felt it too. The next day, the sound of my scars would echo through the hallways of that school. But not from my hands. I returned to Cedar Springs High School 2 days later. Not out of insistence, but because fate has a habit of testing our dignity at the moment we most want to disappear. I received a phone call from a former Army colleague, now the coordinator of a social reintegration program for veterans. She said the school had received an invitation to participate in a lecture on values and citizenship, and that, coincidentally, my name had been suggested. I laughed to myself. Too much irony for one man. The same school that had expelled me now needed an inspiring veteran to speak to the students. Perhaps God had a peculiar sense of humor. I accepted. On the appointed day, I put on my ceremonial uniform. The medals still gleamed, but they no longer weighed as heavily as the memories they carried. When I looked in the mirror, I saw the tired face of someone who had survived more battles than I could count. Still, I took a deep breath and went. When I arrived, the courtyard was full. Students, teachers, some parents. I saw Principal Hughes talking to other staff members. When I approached, he turned pale. "Mr. Miller," he said, surprised. "I didn't imagine that I would accept." I interrupted with a half smile. Duty is stronger than pride, Director. He swallowed hard, unsure what to say. I was led to the auditorium. A small makeshift stage, metal chairs, a hissing microphone. As I prepared, I noticed whispers coming from the front rows. Some professors looked at me uncomfortably. A woman in a blue blouse whispered to her colleague, "Is that the veteran? He seems unstable." The words reached me with the precision of a gunshot. I maintained my composure. Soldiers learn early on that the worst response is to show that it hurt. The director went up on stage, picked up the microphone, and announced in a proud voice, "Today, we will have a special lecture on discipline and patriotism. Mr. Daniel Miller, a former sergeant in the United States Army, will share his experiences with our young people." There was some timid applause, others absolute silence. I walked to the center of the stage. The microphone trembled slightly in my hands, but it wasn't fear. It was contained anger, mixed with something only those who have been forgotten understand, the desire to be heard. "Good morning, everyone," I began. "I served my country for 15 years. I saw friends fall. I saw entire cities rise from the ashes. I learned that freedom is a beautiful word, but a very expensive one." As I spoke, I noticed bored glances. Some students were fiddling with their cell phones. Others were whispering. The principal was looking at his watch. But it was when I mentioned the name of a comrade killed in combat, Private Lucas Rayner, that something happened. A boy in the third row laughed. "He died for nothing," he muttered, thinking no one would hear. The sound of laughter pierced the air like a bullet. For a moment, time stood still. I looked at him, and the auditorium fell silent. "What did you say, kid?" I asked, keeping my tone calm. He swallowed hard. "Nothing, sir." The director stood up immediately. "Mr. Miller, perhaps we should—" "No, Director." My voice came out firm. "It's important to listen. That's how they learn what respect means." I took a step forward. "When you laugh at the death of a soldier, boy, you're laughing at someone who gave everything for a country that may never understand him. You're laughing at those who protected your right to be sitting there right now." The boy lowered his eyes, but discomfort spread through the audience. A father, at the back of the room, stood up. "This is intimidation," he shouted. "Our children don't need to hear war sermons." Others began to murmur in support. The director, anxious, picked up the microphone. "Mr. Miller, I think it's best if we end here." I tried to argue. "Mr. Hughes, with all due respect, I'm not finished yet." "It's over, yes," he interrupted, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is an educational environment, not a battlefield." The words echoed like a final shot. The audience looked at me, some with pity, others with contempt. A group of students began to laugh quietly. I could feel my face burning, not with shame, but with indignation. All the control I had learned to have in war situations now served me not to scream. I took a deep breath, looked at the flag hanging behind the stage, and thought about how many had died believing that it still meant something. I picked up the microphone again, my voice trembling but steady. "The battlefield, Mr. Hughes, is everywhere there is a lack of respect." I handed the microphone back and stepped off the stage under the icy gaze of dozens of people. As I walked down the aisle, I heard whispers. "Underdog. He should be in treatment. That's what war does." Outside, the sun was already beginning to set. I sat in the Jeep, looked at my hands, and realized they were still trembling. But not from anger, from sadness. Sadness for a country that taught me to fight, but forgot to listen to me. Before leaving, I saw the boy with the torn backpack waiting for me near the gate. He was holding something in his hands, a small paper American flag. "I thought you were nice," he said, confused. "Why were they laughing?" "Because sometimes, kid, people are afraid of what they don't understand." He handed me the flag. "My father said you're a hero." He smiled with a lump in his throat. "No, son. Heroes are those who didn't return. I only carry their stories." I started the Jeep and drove away. But in the rearview mirror, I saw something I'll never forget. The boy standing at the gate, raising the flag he'd given me, waving it in the wind. At that moment, I realized that the humiliation had not been in vain. Sometimes, you have to be knocked down in front of everyone for a single soul to understand the value of remaining standing. The morning after that humiliation, I woke up with the feeling that something had broken inside me. The kind of silence that remains after a lost battle, a heavy silence full of echoes and memories. I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to put on a uniform. For a moment, I thought that maybe Director Hughes was right. Maybe the world no longer had a place for men like me. But life sometimes takes it upon itself to turn the tables when we least expect it. Around 8 in the morning, I heard knocking at the door. 3 firm knocks. I got up, still sleepy, and opened it. It was Mrs. Thompson, my neighbor, a lady of almost 70, with a gentle smile and curious eyes. "Mr. Miller, did you see the local news?" she asked, agitated. "News? No, why?" She pointed her cell phone at me. "It's about you, sir." In the video, the headline flashed in red letters. "Veteran is humiliated at public school during lecture on patriotism." Someone had filmed everything, from my entrance into the auditorium to the moment I was interrupted. The clip where the boy mocked the dead soldier was there, followed by the director's abrupt cut as he tried to end the event. But what surprised me was the ending. The image of the boy with the torn backpack raising the paper flag. The video ended there with a simple caption: "Some heroes don't wear capes." Within hours, the video went viral. Thousands of comments flooded social media. Some called me a hero, others criticized the school. Parents, teachers, and veterans from all over the country began sharing the recording, demanding respect. By 10 o'clock, the school phone was ringing non-stop. The press appeared at the gate, reporters trying to interview Principal Hughes, who seemed increasingly cornered. But what really changed everything happened shortly after noon. About 100 students, led by the same boy with the torn backpack, his name was Ethan, they organized a silent march in front of the school. They marched in double file, carrying paper flags and handmade signs. "Respect for veterans. Heroes should not be silenced. Thank you, Sergeant Miller." The sound of their footsteps echoed through the street like the beating of a collective heart. Each step seemed to erase a little of the shame I had felt. When I heard about the demonstration, I hesitated to go. I thought my presence might complicate things. But deep down, something was pulling me back, the same instinct that made me return to retrieve a fallen comrade. I got in the Jeep, put on my coat, and drove there. Upon arriving, I saw the scene, dozens of children and teenagers of different ages marching in absolute silence. Some parents watched with tears in their eyes. Teachers tried to contain their emotion, and Principal Hughes stood at the entrance, completely still. When the students saw me, they stopped marching and began to applaud. The sound grew louder, gaining strength like a wave crashing over me. I, who for so many years had learned to be a stone, felt human again. Ethan ran up to me, holding the paper flag. "Mr. Miller, we wanted to show that we believe in you." I bent down and placed my hand on his shoulder. "Did you do this?" Everyone helped. He simply said what no one else had the courage to say. I felt my eyes welling up. I swallowed hard, trying to smile. "Thank you, soldier." At that moment, Director Hughes approached. His face was different. There was no more arrogance, only shame. "Mr. Miller," he began hesitantly, "I didn't know it would escalate to this extent." "It didn't escalate at all, Director. It only showed what's always been there," I replied calmly. "Lack of respect." He lowered his gaze. "You're right, I was wrong. I was terribly wrong." The students watched attentively. Hughes took a deep breath and extended his hand. "If you still accept, we would like you to return. As a speaker, as a professor, as an example." For a moment, I thought about refusing. Part of me still bled from the scorn, from the cutting words. But then I looked at those children, holding paper flags, and I understood that forgiveness is also a form of victory. I shook his hand. "I'll be back. But not for you, Director. I'll be back for them." The courtyard erupted in applause. Later, as the sun set, I sat in the Jeep watching the activity. The children were still there, collecting the posters. Ethan approached again. "Mr. Miller, are you really going to teach here?" "I will," I smiled. "But this time you're going to help me." His eyes widened. "Me?" "Yes, every good soldier needs an apprentice." He smiled, and in that smile I saw something I hadn't seen in years: hope. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time. Not because the world had changed, but because I saw in the eyes of those boys that there was still something pure to be saved. War can shape a man, but it is respect that rebuilds him. And on that day, amidst applause and paper flags, I realized that I had finally won the battle that mattered most. The battle to believe in people again. Airborne, we had 22 men in the platoon and only 8 returned. Since then, the weight of silence has become my most faithful companion. Before the war, I was a substitute history teacher at a public school in rural Texas. I loved teaching about Lincoln, about the ideals that shaped the country, about courage and sacrifice. Cruel irony, I had to live through all of that for real to discover how much those words hurt. When I returned, the town seemed smaller, the noise of the cars louder, and the people more distant. They couldn't look at me without that mixture of pity and discomfort. The uniform that once made me a hero now only reminded everyone that I was a ghost from a war they preferred to forget. My body returned, but part of me remained buried beneath the ruins of Kandahar. Nightmares visit me every night. I see the fire rising from the sky, the muffled screams on the radio, the smell of iron and gunpowder mixing with the dust. And amidst it all, one memory remains fixed. The promise I made to my youngest soldier, Ethan, minutes before we lost contact. If I come back, I'll teach your children someday. I promise. And that promise brought me here. Years later, I tried to return to the classroom. I wanted to keep my word, to teach, to inspire, to remember the value of each life that was left behind. But the civilian world is crueler than the battlefield. The bureaucracy, the prejudice, the stares that judge your past before even hearing your voice. Even so, I managed to get a temporary position at a local public school. My plan was simple: to teach classes on civics, American history, and perhaps show the new generation that patriotism isn't about flags and parades, but about respect and humanity. But from day one, I realized I wasn't welcome. The director, Mr. Wallace, was a rigid man, proud of his modern progress, as he called it. To him, I was just an outdated symbol, someone who represented an old, conservative, militarized America. For weeks, he watched me silently in the hallways, noting every detail like an inspector. He never smiled. He never welcomed me. And I felt his gaze grow heavy every time I mentioned values, honor, or discipline in the classroom. The students, however, reacted differently. When I told stories not of war, but of courage, they would fall silent. They listened to me, not as if I were a teacher, but as someone who carried truths that books don't reveal. A 16-year-old boy named Jason asked me one day, "Mr. Turner, have you ever been afraid?" I answered without thinking, "Every day." But courage isn't the absence of fear, Jason. It's moving forward even when you're trembling. These conversations began to change the class's behavior. Students who previously mocked the older students now stood up when the national anthem played. Others began writing essays about sacrifice, honor, and citizenship. And that's when the director started to see me as a problem. He said I was romanticizing war, ideologically influencing young people. But what I was doing was the opposite. I was trying to show that war is humanity's failure, and that respect for those who fought is, at the very least, a way of remembering the price of peace. On that fateful morning, everything collapsed. I entered the school wearing my brown coat, the same one I wore when I landed back on American soil. I saw the mural the students had made a tribute titled, "Courage Has a Face." It was my photo, taken by one of the boys during a lecture on leadership. When the director saw it, his face hardened. He called me into his office, and there, in front of curious staff and students, he told me, "Turner, you don't belong here. You're dismissed." At that moment, I felt something inside me break. Not because of the dismissal itself, but because of the manner in which it was done. Public, humiliating, cold. The students fell silent. Some lowered their heads. Others, with tears in their eyes, wanted to protest, but I simply raised my hand and said, "It's all right, kids." Sometimes the truth scares those who have never had to fight for it. I left school without looking back. The sound of the playground bells mingled with the echo of helicopters that only I could hear. At that moment, I realized that, once again, I was being expelled, not from a war, but from the society I had helped to protect. When I got home that day, the sun was still high, but inside everything seemed dark. I took off my brown coat, hung it on the same hook where I keep my medals, those that I no longer know if they signify victory or regret. Sat down in the worn leather armchair. The silence in the house was heavy. Only the ticking of the clock reminded me that time continued, indifferent to what I felt. As I stared at the floor, the director's words echoed in my head. "You don't belong here." This hit me deeper than any explosion in the desert. I had survived ambush, pain, loss, but I didn't know how to fight indifference. War taught me to recognize enemies, but here the enemy wore a suit, a polite smile, and a clipboard with rules. In the following days, the news spread throughout the city. Some parents complained about the military influence in the classes. Others said I intimidated the students with my rigid demeanor. None of them knew about the conversations we had about empathy, about the importance of listening before judging. None of them heard the young people talk about dreams, courage, or how they wanted to be better than the generation that came before. With each local news report that mentioned my name, I became more withdrawn. I started avoiding the city center. The curious stares hurt me like shards of glass. But what I didn't know was that something was quietly moving inside the school. The students, the same ones the principal believed to be too easily influenced, began to take action. While I was trying to rebuild what little piece I had left, messages started appearing in my inbox. First, single tickets. "Thank you, Mr. Turner. You made me believe in myself. My mother said you're a hero. I think so too." Then, bolder messages. "They shouldn't have done that. We're going to show them how important you are." At first, I thought it was just youthful solidarity, something that would die out with time. But I underestimated the power a true seed can have when planted in fertile ground. Meanwhile, I was trying to move on with my life. I started working in a small carpentry workshop with an old army friend, Tom. He said the sound of the saws and the smell of wood helped calm the mind. Maybe it was true. The noise was reminiscent of the distant hum of helicopter engines, but without the fear. Even so, the memory of school wouldn't leave me. Every time I saw a child crossing the street with a backpack on their back, I felt the same tightness in my chest. I didn't want glory. I didn't want pity. I just wanted to keep doing what I loved, teaching. Then, one Monday morning, everything changed. I was making coffee when the phone rang. It was Jason, the boy who always asked questions about courage. His voice trembled, but there was something firm behind it. "Mr. Turner, you need to see what's going on at the school." "What happened, kid?" "Just come, and bring your coat." He hung up before I could ask any more questions. I stood there for a few minutes staring at the phone. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Maybe it was just some commotion or provocation. But something in his voice made me put my coat back on. It was the same tone I heard on the radios at the front, a mixture of fear and purpose. I took the old truck and drove to school. When I turned the corner, I saw what I never imagined. Hundreds of students were gathered in front of the gates with handmade signs, American flags waving in the wind, and words written in red ink. "Respect for our hero. Turner taught us what courage is. Justice for the veteran." The sound was deafening. Shouts, chants, applause. And there was Jason standing on a low wall, holding a microphone connected to a portable speaker. He taught us that honor isn't about war, but about doing what's right, even when the world turns its back on you. The boy said, with tears in his eyes. The scene paralyzed me. For a moment, I didn't know whether to move forward or backward. My hands were trembling, and my heart was pounding as if I were in the middle of a battle. It wasn't fear, it was something deeper. It was the weight of gratitude mixed with the fear of disappointing them. When the students saw me, the noise increased. "It's him!" Someone shouted, and suddenly everyone started saluting. Not a perfect military greeting, but a sincere, awkward human one. The director appeared at the main door, pale, trying to contain the crowd. "That's a violation of school rules," he shouted. But no one was listening. The chorus was louder. "Turner! Turner! Turner!" I stood motionless, watching that generation that used to call me an old soldier, transforming indignation into unity. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't felt since before. But I also knew that it wouldn't end there. And what was to come, the confrontation between the man I was and the system that wanted to silence me, would be the real battle. When Principal Wallace saw me walking through the school gate, with all those students marching around me, his face transformed. The man who had always maintained a rigid and controlled posture looked like he was about to explode. The vein in his temple throbbed, and his gaze carried a mixture of fear and hatred, as if my mere presence there was a threat to the order he so idolized. The students cleared a path for me, as if I were a general returning to the battlefield. The sound of synchronized footsteps, of echoing voices. Respect for the veteran, it made something inside me break and mend itself at the same time. For a moment, I believed it was all a dream, but the determined faces, the tears, the raised fists, it was all too real. Wallace descended the steps of the main entrance with hard, cold steps. "Turner!" he shouted. "You don't have permission to be here. You're trespassing on public property." I tried to stay calm. I took a deep breath and replied, "I didn't come here to cause trouble. I came because my students called me. I came to hear what they have to say." He took a step forward, his finger pointed in my direction. "You are no longer a teacher at this school. Your ideas are dangerous. You are turning impressionable young people into fanatical patriots." Words hit me like a blast. I could handle insults, hatred, but not the distortion of the truth. Before I could respond, Jason climbed back onto the wall and shouted, "He only taught us to respect those who gave everything for the country. Who is this dangerous for, Director?" Wallace's face turned red. "Silence, boy. All of you back in the classroom now." He yelled, but nobody moved. The entire courtyard remained still, silent, the kind of silence that weighs more than the sound of any scream. And that's when the principal decided to destroy me once and for all. He climbed 2 steps, turned to the students, and began to speak loudly, projecting each syllable with calculated cruelty. "This man you defend, he's not even an example. Do you think you know what he did in the war? Do you think he's a hero? Well, know that, according to public records, Sergeant Michael Turner was removed from active duty after a ... double quotes disciplinary incident." I felt the ground disappear beneath my feet. His words echoed, cold and cutting. The students exchanged confused glances. Some murmured. "That's a lie," Jason said, his voice trembling. But Wallace didn't stop. "Yes, dismissed. For insubordination during an operation. A man who disobeyed orders and put his team at risk. That's your hero." For a moment, all I could hear was the sound of my own heart. It was true that I had disobeyed an order, but the reason was never revealed outside of internal reports. That day, it still haunts me. We were in a village near Helmand, and my platoon received orders to advance on a compound suspected of harboring insurgents. But there were civilians there, women, children. I refused to open fire until I was sure. The decision saved lives and cost me my career. The army doesn't like those who question. It prefers obedience to conscience. I tried to explain, but Wallace interrupted me with the same venomous tone. "You should be ashamed of manipulating these young people. The army expelled you, and now you want to play the martyr." The students started shouting, trying to defend me, but he raised his voice even louder. "Enough. This man is not a role model at all. He's just a failure trying to feel important again." Those words pierced my soul. I had faced enemies with rifles, grenades, bombs, but nothing hurt more than being attacked with lies in front of those I loved to teach. Jason jumped off the wall, his eyes filled with rage. "You have no idea what he went through," he shouted. "I know enough," Wallace replied. "I know the war ended for him a long time ago, but he can't accept it. He's trying to turn you into the soldiers he lost." The murmurs grew louder, the tension rising like wildfire in a dry field. Some teachers approached, trying to restrain the students. Others watched from a distance, afraid to take a stand. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, some of doubt, others of pity. And there, in front of everyone, the director delivered the final blow. "You are a reminder of American failure. The war didn't make you a hero, it made you a broken man." Absolute silence. Even the wind seemed to stop. My hands clenched into fists, but I didn't react. I took a deep breath, looked up at the sky, and saw an American flag waving toward, stuck on a rusty flagpole. That image reminded me of something my commander used to say. Don't respond to hatred with shouting, Turner. Respond with dignity. Let time do the work of justice. I turned my gaze to the director and said in a firm, almost calm voice, "You can take me away from here, Wallace. You can humiliate me, you can call me whatever you want. But there's one thing they'll never be able to do. Erase what I taught them." Jason put his hand on my shoulder. "And what was it, Mr. Turner?" "That a man's worth is not in his medals, but in the scars he bears with honor." A timid round of applause began, coming from a student in the back. Then another and another. Within seconds, the entire courtyard was applauding. The director stood motionless, defeated by something he would never understand: genuine respect. And at that moment, I realized the humiliation he tried to inflict on me had backfired on him. But I still didn't know that the worst and the most beautiful was yet to come. The turning point that would change everything was yet to come. Night fell heavily on the city, but I couldn't sleep. Wallace's words echoed in my mind, mingling with the sounds of the past. The smell of hot sand, the echo of distant gunshots, the crackling of the radio, it all returned as if time were folding back on itself. I wondered if it was really worth continuing to fight. If the sacrifice, the sleepless nights, the scars, served any purpose when the very country I defended seemed to have turned its back on me. But as the silence of the early morning consumed me, my phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. "Tomorrow, 8 a.m., go to school. Bring your coat. And trust." I stared at those words for a long time. Part of me thought it was some kind of trap set by the director. Another part, the part that had survived ambush and knew how to recognize the sound of something important about to happen. I didn't sleep. I just waited for dawn. As the sun began to break across the horizon, I put on my old military coat. Every patch, every stitch, every metal sewn into it had a meaning. It wasn't a symbol of glory, but of memory. I got in the truck and drove to the school. As I approached, I sensed something different in the air, a heavy silence, but not hostile. Something was moving, something big. As soon as I turned the corner, I saw the impossible. The entire street in front of the school was packed. Hundreds of students, teachers, and even city residents were gathered. American flags fluttered in the wind. Colorful posters filled the air with phrases written in thick ink. "Honor to those who teach with truth. Turner, our teacher, our example." The army didn't expel a man, it liberated a hero. In the middle of the crowd, Jason was holding a megaphone. When he saw me, he shouted, "He's here! He's here!" The noise that followed was deafening. Applause, shouts, chants. I stood there, completely overcome with emotion. It was like watching an entire platoon marching, not in order, but out of conviction. Principal Wallace appeared on the school's upper balcony, pale and stunned. "What is this?" he yelled. "Who authorized this mess?" But before he could continue, something surprising happened. A black car pulled up in front of the school. The doors opened, and a man in uniform got out. It was Colonel David Monroe, my former commander in Afghanistan. My heart raced. I hadn't seen him in almost 10 years. He walked toward me, his gaze firm and serious. For a moment, I feared the worst, that he would come to confirm Wallace's accusations. But in front of everyone, the colonel turned to the crowd and began to speak. "My name is Colonel David Monroe, United States Armed Forces. I served alongside Sergeant Michael Turner in Kandahar in 2009. I want everyone to know the truth about the man they are trying to silence." The entire courtyard fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. The colonel looked at Wallace and continued. "The report you referred to, Director, was filed incorrectly. Sergeant Turner's act of insubordination was, in fact, a decision that saved 19 civilian lives and 4 American soldiers. He disobeyed a direct order not to bomb a compound that we later discovered housed entire families. For that reason, he received an honorable discharge, not a punishment. The impact was immediate. Teachers exchanged glances, students began to cry. Wallace paled. He tried to say something, but the colonel interrupted him. You should be ashamed for trying to tarnish the name of a man who carried more weight than any of us will ever understand. Jason raised the American flag and shouted, "I told you, he's a hero." The cry spread like wildfire. "Turner, Turner, Turner." The colonel turned to me and placed his hand on my shoulder. "Sergeant, you shouldn't have been expelled from here. These young men need men like you." I tried to answer, but my voice failed me. I could only say, "Sir, I just wanted to teach." "And that's exactly what you're doing, Turner." He smiled. "Only now you're teaching the whole country what honor means." As he spoke, reporters began to approach. Cameras were raised, microphones emerged from the crowd. My story, was finally being told the right way. Wallace tried to justify himself, but the school board appeared. The vice principal, a woman with a firm gaze and calm voice, took the microphone. "The council has decided. Mr. Turner's suspension is officially lifted. He will be reinstated as a full professor effective today." The applause almost knocked the gate down. I stood there, not knowing what to do. For a moment, I closed my eyes and saw the faces of my soldiers, Ethan, Miller, Sanchez, as if they were there, smiling, proud. Emotion overwhelmed me. The tears came before I could hold them back. Jason ran up to me, and all the students followed him. They hugged me, lifted me onto their shoulders. The American flag was raised above us, shining in the sun. And I thought, perhaps after all, the world will still know how to recognize when a man fights for the truth. But deep down, something inside me was still trembling. Because although that was a day of victory, I knew that every war leaves invisible wounds. And mine, even amidst all that glory, still bled in silence. As the sun began to set, the schoolyard was packed. The sound of footsteps echoed like war drums. I never thought I'd hear that again, the rhythm of a march, the precise beat, the synchronized breathing of dozens of young people marching together, eyes fixed, hearts ablaze. Only this time, it wasn't on a battlefield. It was at the city's public school. The principal, stunned, watched from the window. Cell phone cameras captured everything, the sounds, the voices, the shouts of "Respect the veteran." I stood at the gate in my old military coat, the same one I wore when I returned from the war, dirty with dust and memories. A mixture of shame and pride overwhelmed me. I hadn't asked for that. But to see those students marching for me, it was like seeing the past reborn, transformed. As the crowd grew, a heavy tension hung in the air. The police were called. The principal, desperate, tried to contain the situation, claiming that the school could not be a stage for demonstrations. But the students did not back down. I saw in their eyes something I hadn't seen in a long time, the flame of dignity. One of them, the boy who had previously laughed at my way of walking, now held an improvised American flag made of cloth and tape. It trembled in his hands, but shone brightly in the wind. He marched ahead of the others, his firm voice echoing. This man fought for something we've forgotten. My chest tightened. The memories all came flooding back at once. The sound of the helicopters, the smell of the blood-soaked earth, the shouts of my comrades, and the feeling of fighting for something bigger than myself. There, in front of the school, it all seemed to take on a new meaning. Suddenly, a shove. A policeman tried to disperse the group, grabbing one of the boys by the arm. It was instinctive. I stepped forward. The old military instinct awoke, the one that never dies. I placed myself between them and the police force, raising my hand calmly but authoritatively. "Nobody touches them," he said, in a voice I didn't even recognize. The silence that followed was sepulchral. The students stopped. The police officers hesitated. I knew what that posture meant. Years of command in war zones taught me that there are looks that don't need weapons to command respect. One of the officers recognized me. "You, single quotes, Sergeant Lyle, aren't you?" He asked, his eyes wide. I nodded slowly. He stepped back. "My grandfather served under your command." In the Gulf, that sentence was the trigger. The murmurs spread like wildfire. The principal, pale, finally understood what he had done. I wasn't just a grumpy old man interfering in the school. I was part of the story, the part he ignored. I felt a tear roll down my cheek as the boy with the flag approached and handed me the cloth, trembling. "Can you carry it, veteran?" he asked with a respect that disarmed me. I picked up the flag with both hands. It was light, but it felt like it weighed the whole world. I raised it slowly, like someone lifting a memory. The wind blew strongly, and the makeshift cloth stretched, revealing the faded colors of red, white, and blue. For a moment, I swear I heard the voices of my brothers in arms, laughing, shouting, marching around me. It was as if time had stopped. That moment, simple and grand, was the culmination of everything, the past, the present, and redemption meeting at the same point. The crowd began to salute. Some were crying. Others just watched in silence. And there, in the midst of that chaos, I realized something I had missed since the war, a sense of belonging. But the tension didn't end. The director, nervous, tried to end everything with a megaphone. "This is an invasion. You're all suspended," he shouted, his voice trembling. Before he finished, a woman approached the history teacher. She had been the only one to treat me kindly from the start. "With all due respect, director," she said firmly, "what happened here today will go down in this school's history. And you're not going to erase that." The crowd erupted in applause. The director lowered his head. I felt my legs weaken, but I remained firm, the flag still raised. It was the most tense moment of my life outside the battlefield, and in a way, the most important. I was no longer fighting for a distant cause, for an imposed flag. Now I was fighting for respect, for memory, for a generation that needed to remember what it means to have courage. And in that instant, under the golden sunset and the sound of united voices, I knew that war never ends, it only changes sides. The days that followed were a mixture of chaos and renewal. The school, once silent and cold, became a pulsating center of energy. The hallways echoed with laughter, questions, and debates about history, honor, and courage. Each classroom seemed smaller now, almost compressed by the weight of so much accumulated emotion, but also brimming with purpose. I returned as a tenured professor, but more than that, as a symbol of something that went beyond the walls. A living example of resilience, dignity, and truth. Director Wallace was forced to publicly retract his statement. In the auditorium, in front of all the students, teachers, and parents, he uttered words I will never forget. "Mr. Turner, I apologize. Not only for my behavior in recent days, but for failing to see the man you are and the example you represent for all of us." It was an uncomfortable moment for him, yet necessary. His apologies, though belated, didn't erase the past, but they opened space for the future. And for me, that was enough. I took a deep breath and replied, "I accept your apology, Wallace. But remember, respect isn't demanded, it's earned." The students reacted with applause. Some stood up, others spontaneously saluted. I could see in their eyes that something had changed, not just in relation to me, but in relation to the concept of justice, courage, and truth. Those young people who had once mocked me had now become guardians of my story, aware of the value of each scar and memory. In the following months, I began to notice subtle but profound transformations. Students who were previously scattered began to get involved in community projects. They organized fundraising drives, reading groups on military and civilian history, and even activities for local veterans. Some approached me to talk about military careers, others about civics and leadership. I realized that the seed I had planted had not only blossomed, but had begun to bear unexpected fruit. In the city, the story also resonated. News reports, radio programs, and even a national column on citizenship began to mention the school and the return of the veteran as an example of dignity in the face of injustice. People stopped me in the street, shook my hands, and cried. "Mr. Turner, thank you for teaching us what war doesn't let us learn," said an elderly man, a World War II veteran with tears in his eyes. Deep down, it reminded me of my lost soldiers, of Ethan, Miller, Sanchez. Every recognition, every thank you was also for them. Every life I had seen depart was reflected in the gratitude of those young eyes. But not everything was perfect. There were moments of introspection, nights when I relived past battles, memories that couldn't be erased by applause or words. Some nights I would sit on my porch, looking at the starry sky and think about the difficult decisions, the shots that left their mark, the comrades who never returned. The war was always with me, silently reminding me, that no victory is complete without losses. Still, something had changed within me. It wasn't just the public recognition, but the certainty that my mission continued to teach not only facts but values, to inspire not only respect but courage, to show that true strength lies not in the power of a weapon, but in the ability to stand up to injustice. Parents began to seek me out, to thank me for the impact on their children's lives. Fellow teachers looked at me with renewed respect. The entire community seemed to finally understand that the military past was not something to hide but to teach. And I realized that, although humiliation and contempt had marked my path, they also gave me the opportunity to transform something that could be painful into a life lesson for myself and for everyone around me. In the late afternoons, when the courtyard grew quiet, I would walk alone among the benches and trees, breathing in the heavy air of memories and triumphs. It was a moment of contemplation, reconciliation with the past, and preparation for the future. I had been expelled, humiliated, discredited. But I had also been seen, recognized, and respected not only for what I did in the war, but for what I continued to do afterward. Life went on, but I knew that episode would mark the history of the school and my own life forever. And in the silence that preceded night, I smiled to myself, certain that even wounded, even scarred, a man can still fight for justice and win it, not with weapons, but with dignity and courage. As I walked through the empty hallways of the school, now silent after the commotion and celebration, I think about everything that happened. The voices, the shouts, the applause, they still echo in my mind like the traces of a battle that left no physical wounds, but scarred every fiber of my soul. War, I realize, never truly ends. It only changes form. One day it's in the desert, another in the hallways of a public school, surrounded by judging gazes that understand before they understand. What impacts me most is not the belated recognition, nor the students' applause, nor even the principal's formal retraction. No matter how much they try to distort, suppress, or manipulate it, it finds unexpected ways to reveal itself. The courageous act of a single person, coupled with justice that refuses to be silenced, can transform not only the perception of others, but the world around them. Throughout my life, I've learned that worth isn't measured by medals or titles. Fear, pain, and loss are inevitable, but how we deal with them defines who we truly are. On the battlefields of Afghanistan, I saw ordinary men become heroes, and heroes become shadows of themselves. I learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, but acting despite it. That honor isn't displayed, but felt silently carried in our hearts in the choices we make and the lives we touch. Today, standing before that crowd, I realize that every scar, every painful memory, every sleepless night, all of it has a purpose. It's not about personal glory. It's about teaching that dignity cannot be bought, it is earned. Teaching that respect is not an automatic right, but a reflection of one's actions and integrity. Teaching that even in times of injustice and discrimination, it is still possible to rise up and inspire change. And I see clearly that the battle against injustice and prejudice is as real as any war one has ever faced. The principle, the system, people's judgment, these are invisible, silent enemies that test our patience, our faith, and our courage. But just as on the battlefield, we do not fight alone. There are allies who emerge unexpectedly, students who learn, friends who remember, citizens who respect. And sometimes victory reveals itself at the most unlikely moment in the collective strength of small gestures that, added together, become irresistible. Today I feel the war within me has begun to calm down. Not that the memories no longer hurt, but now there is a deeper purpose, to use each pain, each failure, each scar as a lesson. To teach that life, like the battlefield, demands courage, discernment, and humanity. And that true victory is not about defeating external enemies, but about inspiring change and respect through our actions. If there is one final reflection I want to leave you with, it is this. Humanity is fragile, unjust, and often cruel, but it is also resilient, compassionate, and capable of recognizing value when it is finally shown. Every battle, whether in a distant war or in a forgotten school, is an opportunity to leave a legacy. A legacy that transcends titles, uniforms, and medals, something that lives in the hearts and minds of those we touch. And so, as I watch the sunset reflecting on the posters the students hold up, the flags fluttering in the wind, and the attentive eyes of each child, I understand that even after war, even after injustice, there is always room for redemption, learning, and truth. That courage and dignity can be more powerful than any decree, more lasting than any painful memory. In the end, I realized that the greatest lesson the war taught me, and that I can now share, is that a man's strength is not measured by what he defeats, but by what he protects, by what he inspires, and by the respect he manages to command even in the face of the cruelest adversity. And perhaps that is the most important battle of all. Because in the end, war doesn't need gunfire to be real. Sometimes all it takes is an injustice and a courageous heart to transform the world.